Welcome to League Night, everybody. We're really excited to have you for this episode. We're joined by Jamie Thomas. How's it going, Jamie?
What's up, Matt? How are you?
Great. We have a good one packed tonight. Josh isn't in the house, but we've got Charlie Eisenhood, everybody. Charlie, welcome to League Night.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, guys. I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, it's going to be great. In fact, we want to go ahead and start it right out by talking about what happened at the MCO. We had Missy Gannon taking it down, her first win of 2022. And listen to this. Since 2021 Worlds, Missy Gannon has the most wins of any FPO player at 5. If you count U.S. women's in there, throw pink, but 5 wins. She is the closest is 4th, but she has 5. Charlie, we want to say congrats to Chris Dickerson as well, but you were on the mic. What do you have as a reaction to any of this? I mean, give it to us.
I mean, fantastic stat there. And, you know, we know how well she played at the end of last season. It's no surprise that she's coming out on top of that list. But I think it's a great get back in the win column for 2022 for Missy Gannon. And I think perseverance in the final round, that was the name of the game. You know, she got out to a great start in round 1. Had to battle through some ups and downs in rounds 2 and 3 and really put the foot on the gas late in round 3 to close out a confident win. So a nice start for her season. For
sure. Jamie, Chris Dickerson takes it down. He says Silver Series are just as good to him as any other win. What do you see? Do you see a big win, an Elite Series on the rise here? We got the majors coming up. What do you think's in the cards for Chris?
Well, I believe it when he says it because he's put it on tape at this point now. He's benefited quite a bit from the Silver Series bumps in the point standings. But I think that, you know, once you win a major like Chris has, and he's also won the Tour Championship a couple times, I think nothing quite compares to that level. And it's really exciting that we have the spring major back on this calendar, and we're going to get to see that competition not too long from now.
Yeah, it's been a long time in the coming. Let's go ahead and jump into our first segment here. We're going to roundtable a topic in regards to Silver Series. Competing in Silver Series, what are the pros and cons? We've broken this down to talk about the physical aspect, the mental aspect, and maybe the perception of fans and or media. What do we do with Silver Series? Where are we at with that? Jamie, start us out.
Well, let's talk about this from the physical aspect first. I know we break this down along lines because the conversation can go different ways. And physically, I'm going to look at my notes here because I haven't memorized this yet. But if you look at the average top 10 finisher at the Silver Series, back at Belton for MPO, it was 160 strokes, 160.2 strokes. This past weekend at the Music City Open, 171.1 strokes right there. So you're talking about nearly 350 strokes on the body, and we're not even 2 months into the season yet. We still have another Silver Series up ahead at Open in Tallahassee, so you could easily think that, and by the way, that's the top 10. Those are the best players in the field that weekend. So if you look at the average player in the field, if they're playing everything so far this year, they might have 500 extra throws on their body by the time they get to WR Jackson, and that is a grueling course.
But this is disc golf we're talking about. You're really bringing the physical to say that, like throwing a disc. I mean, Charlie, where are we at with disc golf? Are these athletes? Are they really wearing and tearing where it's going to make that big of a deal? What do you think?
I think wear and tear is a real question to ask. And I think if a player has, you know, a little tweaky ankle or their elbow hurts a little bit, you got to take a Silver Series off. Even if you're already registered, you want to play, you got to keep your eye on the prize, and that is the major championship coming up at WR Jackson. You know, I think when it comes to the physical side of the game, you also have to think about rhythm, because you need to feel good about your game. And so if you're feeling like your putter's not quite there, or you're a little shaky off the tee, it may actually be better for you to get those extra reps. Yeah, it could wear on your body a little bit, but you want to have that flow going in your game. And so these 2 weekends coming up to Champions Cup, we've got back-to-back Silver Series. I wouldn't be surprised if most players play at least one of them just so that they can get that rhythm.
Yeah, and I think that rhythm you're speaking of, I think actually brings it back kind of to the mental portion of this conversation, because it can be a rhythm which is affecting your mental. But we do see some players taking a week off before this major. So, and it's a Silver Series, the Tallahassee Open. So the rhythm you're talking about, I do think goes back to mental. And if that's where they're at, I really hope it works for him because the week off or continuing to play is a big deal when it comes to mental game. What do you think about perception? Perception here. This is the fans. They want to see their players play, but also if Chris Dickerson didn't take it down and he lost by 15, is that a big deal? What do you think, Jamie?
Well, I think so. And I think you made a great point about mental there, because when you're trying to find that rhythm in your game, you do have to ultimately make that decision of whether you're going to do this in a competitive environment like a Silver Series, or you're going to do it in the backyard or sort of at a course with a select group of friends. These top pros, they know how to dial in their game, even if they're not in the tournament. But the perception is the part where I think actually there's the biggest upside to playing Silver Series right now on tour. I think Silver Series is still kind of settling into what it's going to be long term. Is it going to be like the Corn Ferry Tour or Q School? Where is it on that list? And look at this. If you look at two players, let's just pick two out of here, Nico Castro and Chris Dickerson. I think there's a lot of favorable perception on these guys publicly in terms of how they're playing. If you look at the top 10 players in MPO standings right now, those two are benefiting the most from the points added to their standings by Silver Series. So, of course, Chris Dickerson's got, the most amount of points movement in 50. Would we be saying he's having as good of a season, Charlie, if he didn't have those wins in the column?
Well, I don't think so. I think there's a lot of bonus points, not only in the Pro Tour standings, Jamie, but in the minds of the fans when it comes to getting these wins at a Silver Series event. I mean, you can't feel like you come away from this weekend and not think that Chris Dickerson and Missy Gannon played well, and you're like, okay, they're going into this major, they just got to win. And the field may not have been as strong because it is a Silver Series event. But the thing is, unless you're a top 5, maybe 10 player, and you go into a Silver Series and you have a bad weekend, no one's going to pay attention to that. No one's looking down the leaderboard to see what happened at the Silver Series the same way they might apply scrutiny at a regular DGPT stop. But if you win, then, that's a W in the column. I mean, Chris Dickerson has played his best disc golf this season on the Silver Series. Should that count the same as some of the less high quality play? Still good, but not the best of his game at the Elite Series? I don't know. In the minds of the fans, I think the wins really matter.
I agree. And to your point, Jamie, I don't think we would be talking because he wouldn't be making the headlines as much if he didn't have these wins. And so I think there is a PR move here in ways where players can know that they should travel to these events. Even Missy Gannon, I'm just going to call her out. I think her mindset is I need to get a win. I need to keep my name there. I was relevant at the end of last season. I need to do it again and continue to do it. And the Silver Series, in my mind, is what that is for, and what the tour will become with that will be players getting an opportunity at that level to make a splash, if you will, and to continue to do that. So that was our topic, our roundtable there on Silver Series. We're moving into our next segment. 2 minutes, everybody. Let's get the topics up. We've got some really good ones here. And Charlie, this is your first time. You're going to go through this. We're going to hold you to it.
Let's do it.
Let's go ahead and talk about topic number 1. We're calling this More Shine Part 2 because last week we talked about the FPO division and the players who were doing well but weren't getting enough attention. So we're moving this into this week with MPO. Who's not getting enough shine? They're performing well, but just as I mentioned with Chris Dickerson a minute ago, maybe they're not getting that headline. But who are those players? Let's start out with you, Charlie. What do you got?
Well, I think the player right now that's just definitely not getting enough attention is Thomas Gilbert. He currently sits just outside the top 10 in the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings. But, he was actually the only player to finish inside the top 10 at both of the first 2 Disc Golf Pro Tour stops. Fun fact. And unfortunately, he had to withdraw from Texas State's. The reason he's a little further down the leaderboard, I think, is because he just hasn't had enough points opportunities at this point. But, 5th place finish, 10th place finish to start the year. Thomas Gilbert is playing some of his best disc golf in some time, and we need to be paying attention to that. Hopefully he's healthy and ready to go for Champions Cup.
Yeah, Jamie, he made some good points there. Do you have anything? Who's your player? Let me put it that way. Have you thought one up?
Yeah, I've got 2 here, and Thomas Gilbert was definitely in this rodeo for a minute, so I'm glad, Charlie, that you brought him into this. I've got to give some lefty love out to Chris Clemens this year. Let me hit you with some stats real quick. Last year, Circle 2 in regulation, right? This is a really important stat when talking about your ability to score. He was 112th on tour by the end of the year, 57%. He's increased that number by 2% to 59 this year, but that moves him up into 55th place from 112th. So that tells you that Chris Clemens is at that point of the game where it's just the inches that matter. You know, if he's getting just inside circle 2 versus just outside of circle 2, and he can see that translate on the leaderboard, even though you might not look at it. Another thing, he's currently 11th in tour standings, which matches his highest finish. He finished the 2019 season in 11 in Pro Tour stats. And really quickly, Joel Freeman. We saw him out at Texas State. He's never finished a Pro Tour season in the top 10 in any stats category. So far this year, he's 4th in fairway hits, 6th in circle 1 in regulation, 8th in circle 2 in regulation. Joel Freeman tearing it up right now.
Wow, that's some fantastic input, and you guys did it in 2 minutes, so that's a double win. I would say, and I don't have anything to back this up. For some reason, Mason Ford sticks out in my head. But let's go ahead and get into topic number 2. So the FPO field isn't what it used to be, and I mean that in the positive sense. We are seeing some action-packed and stacked fields in the FPO, these players. It should go without saying that Paige, Kat, Kristen, they have achieved that elite status. But the question here is, who else can we include in that? We're going to set those aside. Who else can we put in that elite status? Let's go to you, Jamie. What do you got?
Yeah, you know, it really comes down to, if you want to talk about the next up player behind those names, it comes down to the M's. Are you going Missy Gannon or are you going Valerie Mondahano? And here I can make the case right now. Mondahano's average finish on the Pro Tour last year, just inside the top 10 at 9th. Average finish so far this year, 2.3. First, second, fourth in 3 starts. So this is huge. If you want to make the bear case against it, you could say she's playing in her home state. Let's see how she continues to do as she gets further away from courses she's familiar with. On the other hand, Missy, there was a lot of talk about her at the end of last year, and maybe even you could say some recency bias in some of the end of season awards when we talk about Missy Gannon. And we brought it up earlier in the show. It's so important that she got that win in the column, because maybe we're iffy on Missy so far this year. Is she really ready to run with those big dogs? We haven't even seen Haley King yet this year, so we're looking forward to that.
Great points. Charlie, what do you have?
Well, first of all, I think you have to include Valerie Mondahano in that elite grouping right now from what we've seen so far this year. Remember, she skipped LVC, but has been inside the top 5 at each of the other 3 events she's attended. And of course, getting the win at Waco. So for me, she definitely meets the bar. The sneaky other M that we haven't talked about yet is Kat Mertsch.
Nice.
Now, I know that it's seems a little crazy for me to say that Kat Mertsch might be in this conversation, but she's sitting at 4th in the Pro Tour standings right now. She's been inside the top 10 at each of the first Elite Series stops this year. And the reason you might not feel like she belongs in that conversation yet is that she hasn't really been in a position to win any of these tournaments. We're not really seeing her on the lead card in the final round. But remember, Missy Gannon a couple years ago, this was very similar. You know, she was finishing 3rd, 4th, 5th in that range. And then, boom, she catapults to new highs in 2021. Could be seeing the same thing from Kat Mertsch.
All right, Kat Mertsch, you guys did not collaborate on that, the M's, but is it crazy for me to throw out the idea of like Maria Oliva or even Macy Valadiaz? I mean, I feel like all the M's.
Year of the M's.
Players, we could have this conversation again in 6 months, and we might start to talk about some of those players as really being in that elite group.
That was excellent. Let's get into topic 3. So last week, Jeff Spring confirmed that standardized baskets are a bullet point on their list of to-do items. He did say it's likely years away from happening, but if and when this happens, how do you think this change would affect the competitive landscape? Jamie, you take it to us. Give it to us.
All right, major caveat here. I do work for the Pro Tour. I have nothing to do with this, so I literally don't know what's going on.
All right, Charlie,
we're gonna
No.
fully blame Jamie for any and all grievances. So,
all right,
Perfect.
we've taken enough of his time. Give us the rest of what you got, Jamie.
Yeah, so basket standardization is really interesting here, and I think one of the cool things that I'm thinking about if this happens is if we have one basket on tour all year, you're going to start to see a lot more precise upshots, especially when you're getting into this mode of where players are running it. The level at which, or the distance at which these players are starting to run chains is just getting further and further out. Let's call it circle 3 if you play the birdie board game, right? You're running it from that range these days. And I think between players and caddies, I would expect that they're going to be a lot more precise about height, about speed, about stability of the disc. And you're going to see a lot more close calls scaring some of those chains if they know how they're going to react week in and week out.
All right. I think you're going to be able to keep your job, but Charlie, what do you got?
Well, Brian Earhart was talking on the broadcast this weekend about how amazing it was to watch some of these players, sometimes not even doing a step putt or a jump putt, just trying to throw a spinner from like 75 feet, 80 feet, 100 feet. Here's the thing. I think the real change, if we see baskets get standardized, is that the best putters are going to extend their advantage. Once they know the target that they're dealing with and they can dial in where they need to hit the chains, we're going to see those top players really able to start to dial in even more precisely that putting. And we could see those players pick up 1, 2, 3% in their statistics. And that can start to make a real difference at the end of a tournament.
Yeah. And I feel like strictly concerning not manufacturers making the baskets, not agreements, deals, sponsorships, I can see strictly creating a basket specifically for the tour, only having positives. That's my take on it. There's the bell. We're moving into topic number 4. The first major of the year is right around the corner. Some players are taking the week, as we mentioned, to focus their minds. Others are trying to stay sharp by playing in Tallahassee, the Tallahassee Open. What are your favorites for this first edition of the Champions Cup? Charlie, what do you got?
I'm so glad I get to go first so I can get the first picks. I think you have to go with Paul McBeth. I know that he's had a couple of clunky rounds this season, but you know what? He's actually shot at least a share of the hot round in one of the rounds at every single event that he's played so far this year. Coming off the win at Throwdown the Mountain, obviously won at Waco, has looked really sharp at times. And so when I add up, obviously, the long legacy of success at major championships and what we've seen from him so far to start 2022, clearly the favorite for me. And on the FPO side, I'm going with Katrina Allen. I think we're seeing a ton of confidence from her, obviously winning at LVC and Belton. She's improved from Circle 2 putting. And is there anybody more precise off the tee and in the fairways? And you're going to need that at WR Jackson.
Yeah, and Jamie, I know making picks is not your favorite thing to do, but you get a whole minute to do it. So give us who you're thinking for Champions Cup.
All right, on the spot. I like the Macbeth pick. I got to compliment that because we usually see Macbeth complaining about his putting not being online or something like that. We really haven't heard a lot of him about that this year. So he's already in a good headspace. Calvin Heimberg is a guy who's been playing really, really well. He also comes in as the sort of not defending champion, but he won the last time the tour was at this course. So that counts for something. He just has that shot shape that really works out here. But it's going to be a toss up there. In FPO, we're not allowed to bet against Katrina Allen right now. It's illegal. Bet not accepted. She is doing everything and more. She is having the most tremendous season after switching sponsors and completely changing up all the tools in her bag. She's coming out stronger, but just to be different than Charlie, I think Kristen TATTAR is finally ready to kind of get that. And she's got that shot shape as well that'll set up really nicely at Appling.
My second choice, Jamie.
A lot of players are counting on WR Jackson to be friendly to them. And I don't know. We're going to have to see how it plays out. Let's get into our next segment here. And this segment is trivia on league night. We're really excited to bring this segment tonight. We all come with trivia questions that we're trying to put out there and hopefully stumping each other a little bit here, but we're going to have some good conversation. Jamie, you get the first one here. So go ahead and give us your trivia for tonight.
All right. Need you to figure out who this player is. And I'm going to go division agnostic at first, but I'll give you a hint if it's troublesome. This player has reached Circle 1 in regulation 109 times this year so far. Last year, reached Circle 1 in regulation 177 times. So in percentage, that's a 15% increase, but that's 60% of where he or she was at the end of last season. What player are we talking about?
All right, so I gotta do a better job of introing this. I said bring your trivia, but it's gonna be Charlie and I working together to attempt to figure out Who's Jamie talking about? And I just want to throw out the first thought, Charlie.
Okay.
The first thought I have is to have such a significant boost already at this point in the season, maybe they didn't play a lot last year. That's a
It makes
possibility.
sense. 8 elites and 3 silver series, according to Jamie. So
Yeah.
not that many tournaments. I
Yeah.
have a couple
Full-time
guesses.
tour, though. Full-time tour.
Yeah.
I can say that.
Okay.
This person's worked on their power quite a bit.
Okay, that gives me
Ooh.
more of a hint, I think. I think Rebecca Cox is my first guess in this category. I was going to say Gannon Burr, but I think Rebecca Cox if we're talking about working on power.
Yeah.
What do you think, Matt?
That is actually really fantastic. I wasn't going down that road, but when you looked at her performance and her, what she's worked on for her throw, I think it makes total sense. I have not seen the numbers there. I feel like, is it possible Cat Merch is in this conversation?
It's possible.
There's a lot of possibilities here. So that's the FPO. I did have Gannon Burr in my number 1 slot when this trivia question came up. I think we need a little bit more. Working on their power makes me move away from Burr. Simon Lizotte, there we go. He's rehabbing.
Yes.
He works on his power.
Simon working on that power, that C1R stat.
But
at
he
home.
hasn't played enough. So
Diapers changed in regulation. Simon's winning in that category right now. But it is Rebecca Cox, Charlie, coming out firing on league night here. Rebecca Cox.
I swear I did
quite a
not
bit.
see this beforehand.
I believe you. But
Jamie has it in the notes. You just had to scroll. No, I'm kidding.
She's still not in the top 10. That's the other mind-blowing part I wanted to add to this. She's not in the top 10 in standings right now, and she's had a 15% increase in her C1R stat. So watch for her.
Wow.
Buy low, sell high later this season.
All right. So we're going to take it over to Charlie. Go ahead and bring us your trivia question for us tonight.
All right, so this one you get a multiple choice here. There's been 3 FPO players in the top 25 that have improved their birdie percentage by at least 13% this season. Now, so that's, if last year they were at 15%, now they're at least at 28%. Can you name those 3 players? This is an FPO.
Wow. Jamie, I've been talking a little bit. You asked the last question. You start this one.
All right, birdie percentage is up. In FPO, I mean,
3 top 25 players.
I'm going to give you a hint too. It's not Rebecca Cox. Although Rebecca Cox went from 14% in 2021 to now 26% in 2022. So she just missed my cutoff at least 13% improvement, only improving by 12%. Obviously a tremendous bump.
I feel like that Valerie Mandujano could be in this conversation. Jamie,
that'd be my first one, just because I mean you don't go from averaging a 9th place finish to averaging a podium finish without increasing your birdie percentage against Katrina and Paige, right?
Right.
Bingo, I'll give you that one. That's correct.
Ooh.
She moved from 22 to 35% so far in 2022.
Okay. And I feel like I mentioned another name, Kat, and I also mentioned MISSY. I feel like those would be in the conversation possibly, but I mean, it's pretty large without looking at the numbers. What do you think, Jamie?
The other person I would add to this conversation is possibly Owen Scoggins. She's hanging out in the top 10 right now. And, with the Vegas being the outlier there, she's actually played extremely well. And she can putt. So like, we're just talking birdie percentage. All she needs is a look. So
that brings me back. I know we're jumping back, but that was your question earlier about Circle 1 and regulation. I thought maybe Owen was that. So it's possible if I was thinking that this could be it. Charlie, go ahead and give us the answers here.
So Cat Merch was correct.
Oh,
so
yes.
bingo. She goes from 17 to 30. And the other one, this was always going to be the hard one. Holland Handley going from 18% to 32%, going up 14 points so far in 2022.
Okay, yeah, Holland Handley really performing at a fairly high level, and she's been on tour now a few years, so that's really good for her, and that's good for us to see. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to bring you the next one here. Let's see if I can do a few things at once. I'm going to switch it up. Bogey or worse. The following names, you ready? Missy Gannon, Kristen TATTAR, and Evelina Salonen have all played the first 3 Pro Tour events, the Las Vegas Challenge, Waco, Texas States. We're talking only the elite here. If you were to rank them from best to worst when it comes to their total bogeys, and we can say or worse, so bogeys or worse, who do you think has taken the fewest bogeys and who has taken the most? The list: Missy Gannon, Kristen TATTAR, Evelina Salonen, or rank them from first to third.
Wow. Well, Jamie, the first thing that comes to mind is that it feels like a little bit of a trap question, because could Evelina actually have the fewest total over par holes, even though when she does go over par, it's sometimes double, triple bogeys?
That's a tester because, and I think you guys did this on the upshot the other day, but talking about her strokes gain differential off the tee, she would have to be like putting for eagles so often to 3-putt and then still not take massive over par strokes. So I don't know. I'd fall into the trap, I think.
Yeah.
What are you listening to, Maz? Who has the fewest out of that list?
I think it's got to be Kristen Tatar. That's my guess.
Okay,
I
Kristen
would agree.
Tatar's. Okay, you both agree. Who would take second in your guess?
I mean, are we going to TATTAR, GANNON, SALONEN? Does that make sense?
I think Salonen is going to be behind Gannon. That's my guess. I think Salonen's still getting lots of pars and birdies.
Okay,
Just because she's been that high up on the leaderboard despite putting.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And the big numbers are coming in single holes.
there is. I'm taking your number then, as you said, Kristen, Missy Gannon, Evelina. Is that correct? That's what you said. Okay.
Other way around. Evelina, I want Evelina second and Gannon in the
Okay,
most.
so you and Jamie are separate. Neither of you have got this correct, but
Wow.
we'll see how this plays out. Missy Gannon out of that list has the fewest at 26 holes bogey or worse so far
Okay.
on the Elite Series. Second place goes to Kristen Tatar with 31, so only 5 more. And then Evelina, this is fun, and I'm going to give it to you. She is the third in this list, but now let's do a bonus point here. Is she more or less than 4 bogeys behind Kristen Tatar? More or less than 4? The thinking.
I say less.
I was
Okay.
going to go over.
Okay, so you
More.
guys are split there. She is only 2 bogeys behind Kristen Tatar. So Charlie, you got the bonus point there. Only 33 bogeys or worse for Evelina and Kristen at 31. Now, just as a follow-up, people want to know who's doing the best out there. Katrina Allen sits at the best with only 24 bogeys or worse. Second place is Missy Gannon. Out of all FPO players, second place is Missy Gannon. Third place goes to Paige Pierce with 27 bogeys or worse. So really interesting stats.
So you're telling me that Katrina's first at only 24 bogeys or worse. Evelina is at 33. So you're talking about 9 bogey or worse holes are separating like podium and outside of the top 10 in FPO rankings right now.
Well, what it tells
Wild.
me, yeah, and what it tells me is that Evelina is not getting her birdies. She's parring a lot of them, and that goes back to her putting. So, all right, let's move into the next trivia, and I'll bring it here. 4 bogey-free FPO rounds. There have been 4 players who have done this in FPO, bogey-free this season at Pro Tour events, not Silver Series. I'm going to give you 3 of their names, okay? Paige Pierce, Kristen Tatar, Katrina. Who's the 4th? Where do you start?
Didn't Mondahano go bogey less?
That's a
at one
good
of the
guess.
rounds at
Cat Merch
Waco?
would be a good guess too.
Merch is a good guess. If you made me bet between one of the two, I would take Mondahano just because of the control factor. I think Merch is raw power, but Mondahano, the shot on 17 tells you everything you know about her control of a disc.
I'm with you. I think that's a great guess.
I feel like at Waco she had one of those rounds bogey less.
Okay. So I was going to say bonus points. I love doing bonus points if you can choose the course or the round. So you guys are moving to Waco and you're saying Mandahano?
Yeah, it's a strong guess. Anything else that makes sense?
It is a strong guess. I mean, I'll give that to you, and I'm going to tell you it's not correct. So if you want to deviate for one more chance here, and I'll give it to you. Who would be
Ooh.
your second pick?
Okay.
And to be fair, Valerie was very close many times, as were a lot of players, but sometimes a bogey keeps you out of that perfect round.
Well, I think we got to go with Cat Merch and
Roll it.
LVC.
All right. And it's not Cat Merch, but again, very close. She was very close many times. This goes to Missy Gannon. And this was in the 4th round of the Las Vegas Challenge. And here's a fun fact. All 4 of the bogey-free rounds happened at Las Vegas Challenge for these FPO players. The only bogey-free this season. So as far as Elite Series go. All right, let's move into our next one. Jamie, you got this one. Or Charlie, actually. Go, Charlie.
All right, here we go. Ricky Wysocki is tied for first on the tour in parked percentage. Who is tied with him? And it's literally the exact same number. I did the math myself.
Wow. Tied for bullseyes. Did we specify MPO or are we
It's MPO. Yep.
Okay, it is MPO.
Mm-hmm.
Who else?
Wow,
is just
there's a
throwing
few
darts?
names that pop up, but I don't know if there's any way to confirm this. Who started out really well? Drew Gibson, Gannon Burr. The
Drew
names have been
hasn't
shifting.
played. He hasn't played since Las Vegas, so I doubt that holds up.
Is this
point.
percentage we're talking about though?
This is percentage. This is
Okay.
percentage.
Who has parked the most? Like, could it be Paul? Like, maybe the results aren't the same as you would expect by hearing his name next to park percentage the most. Like, you would expect him to just be straight ones across the board, but Paul.
I feel like Eagle would have
stress-free.
been a part of this conversation, but I don't put him there right now.
Man,
Yeah, this is good. Bradley
Okay.
Williams. I'm just doing a
Oh, wow.
shot in the dark.
I like the shot in the dark. It's more shot in the darky than it is chalk.
Okay.
You got a guess?
That was my guess. That was my
Okay.
shot in the dark. I mean, Anthony Barella, Greg Barsby. I'm just going to start saying
Humphreys,
names.
throw it out there. Luke Humphreys.
One of those names that was just said is correct. It's Greg Barsby,
Oh,
16.7% parked.
Wow.
There we go.
How about that?
That
So
is
he-
fantastic.
So he benefits from not playing as many tournaments, right? Because we haven't seen him at every stop this year so far.
Well, I mean, and when he's showing up, he's putting the disc right by the basket.
Yeah. Helps when you design the course. I mean,
we talked about that
I'm
last
just
week.
giving Barsby.
All right.
you gotta love
Moving into
Barsby's
our
great.
last and final trivia tonight. Jamie, you're bringing it. What do you got?
All right. This one might shock you here, guys. Which MPO player is highest in the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings that has not finished an Elite Series event inside the top 10 this year? And bonus points if you can guess what place he's in.
Okay, and you said MPO. This is
Mhm.
MPO.
Hasn't
highest
finished in
Disc
the
Golf
top
Pro Tour.
10.
On the Elite Series, has not finished in the top
The
10.
Elite Series. Okay.
Mhm.
Ooh, okay, Elite Series, which means that if he's specifying that in the trivia, it could mean that they had a good Silver Series outing.
Which maybe that gives us a little clue.
It does.
They've had
but
a
what is the
decent,
clue?
so they haven't missed the top 10 on the Silver Series. Maybe that would have been an
Ooh.
even more interesting way to put it.
I'm trying to think. Alden Harris could be somebody
Yep.
that's in the conversation.
That's a good
here.
one. Ezra Aderhold, possibly.
Ezra Aderhold. Yeah.
Good guesses. Nothing right so far.
I said Bradley Williams. For some reason, this guy stands out in my head as a player who is performing okay, but not showing up in that top 10. So I don't know. That's my
I'll
pick.
give you one more hint. Since you said Bradley Williams, I am pretty sure this player was not playing disc golf when Bradley Williams started.
Wow. So I mean, that goes to like you
Okay.
said Alden Harris, but that goes to Gannon Burr,
But it couldn't be him because he finished it in second at LVC.
Mason Ford. No.
I'm trying to think who was in the top 10 this past weekend. I'm trying to go down a leaderboard in my head.
Quick, let's pull up the rankings. That's fantastic. I'm honestly stumped here. I mean, I said Aderhold, but I don't know. I do not know, Jamie.
Trying to think who's young. Yeah, go ahead. Tell us, Jamie.
This player people were saying that they might be the face of the company that they represent going forward from an equipment manufacturing standpoint. Kyle Klein.
Wow.
13th.
Oh,
13th right now
wow.
on the Pro Tour standings. He has not finished in the top 10 in Elite Series event, but he finished 5th at Belton and 10th this past weekend.
My reaction is genuine because he is a player that is not in the headlines right now for the simple fact of what you just pointed out. And it's kind of become one of these names that has, quite frankly, been tucked away until you just said it. And I think that's, wow, really good trivia there. We're getting to the place in the show where, Jamie, you're going to go ahead. I believe you're going to give us what we're closing out with today is what's coming up. So go ahead and tell us about it.
Yeah, and I like that I stumped you so bad you kind of forgot what we were doing here.
What are we
that's
doing?
the mark
I'm
of
shocked.
good trivia here.
I am shocked.
So next, this coming up week, as we said earlier in the show, the Open at Tallahassee is the now 4th Silver Series event of the year. And maybe a warm-up for that Champions Cup coming along just the weekend after next. If you are confused about Elite Series, Silver Series, Majors, what does it all mean? Take a look at this graphic right here. It's only 25% of the points, and the best 3 finishes on the Silver Series do get added to your favorite player's point total. Elite Series and Majors are really where it's at, but Silver Series, you can pick up some advantage. Tallahassee's the next one. Check it out this Sunday on DGN. Charlie, you're on the call this weekend. You excited for this one?
I certainly am. I'll be with Zoe Andike and Brian Earhart. Looking forward to it.
That's right. All right, as we get to the end of league night here, we're going to pass it over to Charlie. Go ahead and close us out, Charlie. It was great having you tonight. True pleasure.
Guys, thanks so much for having me. It's been awesome. So, look, players, you got to call the foot faults. You got to call the pace of play. It's on you. We're all suffering through it right now. Make the call, please.
Oh, I absolutely love it. All right, signing out, Jamie, Charlie, fantastic. We'll see you out there on the course someday, everybody. Talk to you later.